So my name's Scott Anton. I manage business development with Gideon Taylor, and this is going to be a little bit of a whirlwind going through a few different sample forms that clients have built out using GT eForms for PeopleSoft, which is a PeopleTools-based bolt-on. It is the only form builder certified by Oracle for PeopleSoft, so it's got a great stamp of approval. I'm going to go ahead and start off with actually, I'm going to show you our schedule for the next couple of days. We've got a number of these 15-minute mini sessions scheduled across a variety of topics. Some of those are eForms related. Some of them are PeopleTools related. We've got a session on drop zones later on today, event mapping tomorrow, PeopleSoft Forms and Approval Builder tomorrow, page and field configurator tomorrow. So please feel free to go check out our virtual booth. You can find the same schedule at the top of our booth there, and we encourage you to join us for any of these. All right, that said, go ahead and share some videos. It sounds like somebody might be on. I'm going to go ahead and mute folks. If you're not muted already, please do so. I'm more than happy to field questions as we go along here. This first demonstration is going to be a very quick one. It's an example of a veteran status declaration form that we built out using GT eForms. It is a wholly configured solution. There was no technical development involved in this, including the fluid version of the form that you're seeing. All of that was configurable. This was built out by a functional business analyst in about 45 minutes. We're going to go ahead. We've got this set up right now as an onboarding form, so you can see that as part of an onboarding suite of forms maybe that a new employee would be responsible for. We'll click on the veteran status form, and the very first thing that we notice is that it is pre-populated with some information about me as the employee. So it's got my EMPL ID, it's got my employee name. I could also incorporate any other data that already exists within PeopleSoft can be configured to pre-populate your form dynamically. And all of that data is obviously live from within your PeopleSoft database. We've got some rich text formatting here so that we can incorporate instructions. We can also incorporate URLs, hyperlinks, graphics. If we've got an image that we want to include, video content, all of those things are available within the rich text formatting. You can insert text at the top of the page within each segment, as well as inside segments between different fields. You can really place text elements anywhere within your form, which is exciting. We've got one field down here that we need to respond to, and below that there's nothing else left of this form except for a comments box and some action buttons. If we click no, that we're not a veteran, then we're all done. We can go ahead and submit. If we click yes, though, we see that there's some conditional, there's a new segment that opens up for me based on my response. So now I have to review these veteran types and figure out which one of those I would consider myself. So I've got three choices to make depending on which one I choose. It may or may not impact how the form is laid out to me. When I click Identify Protected Veteran, now the form says, oh, okay, well, I need some additional information from you, so please respond to these questions. This is an extremely useful tool, again, all configuration-based. If you're talking about building out a questionnaire for people and you want to have branching logic within that questionnaire based on what responses they give, you might want to have them respond to other questions and show them additional pages, open up additional segments. So now that we've done, we can go ahead and save if we're not quite finished and we want to come back to it later, or we can go ahead and hit submit. We can see the approval routing on this form. This one is pretty basic. There's just one approver, GT administrator in this case, but we can go ahead and configure whatever approval routing we want, including conditional rules so that it skips certain approvers under certain conditions, or it adds certain approvers based on the requirements of the business process. All of that is incorporated into the smarts of the form. We've got a transaction log here that captures all the detail about that particular transaction, everybody who took action on that form, what action they took, when they took it, how long it took them to take that action, and all of that is reportable data and obviously stored within PeopleSoft. So that is a very quick example of a configuration-only eForm. I am going to jump to one that is, if folks wouldn't mind muting, that'd be fantastic. All right. This is I think you should be able to see my screen. Yeah. This is an example of a job change form. It is going to be far more complex than the veteran status form that we showed there. A lot of this is configuration-based, but there's also a fair amount of technical development that went into building out this form. The GT eForms tool is wholly extensible. Anything that you can do with People Tools, you can do with GT eForms. It has people code hooks built into it to allow for you to extend it to whatever extent you might need. We're using some delivered navigation here. We've got a nav collection that includes an OmniSearch tool at the top. And we're going to use this form to initiate and execute a job change for an employee. I can enter search criteria in there. I can provide the employee's full name, partial name, EMPL ID, and then we see the results. We've got a list of different related actions that we can take. Some of these might be eForms. Some of these might be delivered PeopleSoft actions. It might be guided self-service. It might be a PeopleSoft form, actually a smart form. HR, I don't remember what they're called. Smart HR templates, that's what they're called. So incorporating different things within related actions. A number of these actually are eForms transactions that we have built into this demo. We're going to initiate a job change. We can go ahead and review job data if we want. This is a form actually that is used by University of South Carolina. They implemented a number of HR-related eForms that went live a year ago, and they have done a significant amount of self-service automation, both for employees and managers, using eForms. We've got a lot of information here that's pre-populated. We've got highlights turned on. So that means that anytime I change a field value, it's going to automatically highlight that field, not only for the initiator of this form, but then also for each one of the approvers that reviews it during the workflow. We've got some of these fields that are read-only, so we've restricted edits to those. That also is configurable, and you can choose, maybe there are certain approvers along the process where you want to make fields editable so that they are authorized to make changes to those field values, and maybe other users or other approvers are not. In this case, we're just going to do a relatively simple transaction. We're going to change the supervisor ID. So we identify that person. We can go click Next. We've got some other options here to change components of pay. I see that once I make that change to the comp rate code, it automatically changes the values in pay group and compensation frequency. So those smarts are built into the form as well. We also have rules, edits built in that you're not seeing, but it prevents the user from exceeding min-max values for the compensation. So all of that is built into the form. We also have a grid down here. That's configuration-based. You can add grids to any form that you create. We've got some buttons here that allow for us to select funding sources. I can fill in whatever information I might have as part of a chart string so that I can make sure that I've got the proper combinations applied. Here I've got percentage distribution. I see the total here is increasing as I adjust the numbers. We've got an edit built into this form also that requires that the total percentage is 100. Otherwise, you can't proceed with the form. I can go ahead and add additional pay if I want to. So there's a lot of different functions that are occurring during this form. Right now, the way that the form was set up, it only applies a single action reason to this particular request, but I can go ahead and add additional ones if I need to. You can also set up your forms to capture multiple action reasons dynamically. So this list might have a half dozen different action reasons that automatically calculate based on what action is being taken within the form. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add another row. When I do that, watch the file attachment segment below, because it's going to execute a little bit more logic. So we've got a salary decrease now as a reason, and it added a requirement for an additional attachment to be uploaded with this form as part of this request. So you can have attachments be conditionally required as part of your transactions based on your business rules. So again, the form isn't going to allow us to proceed until we upload the appropriate attachments that are required for this transaction. I'll add any comments that I might have. I can save the form if I'm not done yet, or I can go ahead and hit submit. And then I'm done. I can go ahead and view the approval route. A little bit more complex, multiple approvers versus the veteran status form that we looked at before. Some of these could be conditional, again, based on my business rules that I incorporate. GT eForms uses the approval framework, or AWE, and adds a configuration layer to that. So you can go ahead and configure approval routing instead of having to set that up traditionally in AWE. And here we're just showing where it's updated the PeopleSoft pages. This particular form updates up to 6 different components based on what data is being updated. I'm sorry, was there a question?
To my webinar.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and mute that. There we go. The final demo I'm going to show you is an example of a tuition reimbursement form. And again, if anybody has any questions as we're going along, please feel free to pose those either in the Q&A or in the chat. I'm more than happy to take a pause. So this is a tuition reimbursement form that we worked with a client of ours on. Wakefern Food Corporation in New Jersey has been actually they were the very first GT eForms client back in 2003 when we first created the GT eForms tool. They have dozens of eForms that they use for a wide variety of HR-related processes. This tuition reimbursement form is one of their newer fluid forms. So you're going to see the user experience in this one as well. I've got a hyperlink that users can click on to review the tuition reimbursement policy. So that takes them out to review additional information about the program. That opens up in a separate window. Now I'll go back to my form. Again, I see that there's a fair amount of information that has pre-populated to make this process easier for me. There is one field I need to fill out, and that's my phone extension. That also could pre-populate if that was a known piece of data for the employee. It has some information, some scores populated from their recent performance reviews, because that's going to determine whether or not they're eligible for the tuition reimbursement request. This next segment, we've got a start date that pre-populates. I can go ahead and change that if I want to. Current academic year is calculated based on the value that you enter for the start date. I'm going to go ahead and enter the end date, and then also select the semester that I took the course or courses that I'm requesting the tuition reimbursement on. Here I see some instructional text again at the top of my segment. And I can go ahead and fill out the information for the course that I took and the school at which I took it. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward because I know that we are running short on time. So doing some quick data entry there. Again, I've got some text that I inserted down at the bottom of my segment. And then I've got a grid here that allows me to input details about the specific course or courses that I took. And I can add as many rows as I want. We can also have the form incorporate additional details if we need to capture more data. Here we see the value of their current tuition reimbursement balance that they have. And this information is populating directly from PeopleSoft. We've got a link to download the repayment agreement, which is what this window is showing. So it's downloading that as a Word doc. So I can go ahead and review that and submit it if I need to. As I enter information about the cost, I see that the remaining balance is going to be decremented. And then I'll also see another segment open up down below. So keep an eye at the bottom of the page. I see that there are action items that open up down below now that I've actually inserted a dollar amount that I'm requesting. I need to acknowledge both of those statements. And again, that's all configuration based, adding these kind of acknowledgments to your form. I need to make sure that both of those are responded to as yes before it'll allow me to submit. Here, if I try submitting without that, I get an error message saying that I can't proceed until I do. I'll go ahead and submit, and then I could view the approval route if I need to. I've got some additional information in here about next steps, what's happening now as part of my application process. And here I see the different the approvers that it's going to be routed to. And then I can go ahead and update PeopleSoft at the end so that that reimbursement, if it's been approved, can be applied to my next paycheck, or if I have a different method of handling those reimbursements, if it needs to go through AP, we could certainly do that as well. So that is a really fast run-through of some examples of forms for HCM. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions if there's anybody that that has any. If not, I'll let you guys skedaddle off to your next session. And certainly feel free to join us for other mini sessions over the course of the next couple of days. There's a lot of good content on onboarding, page and field configurator, drop zones, event mapping, and more eForms, obviously. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon. I'll continue to hang out here in case anybody has any questions that come up.